NASA has scrubbed the long-anticipated launch of the Artemis I mission today after an engine bleed. The mission has had several delays over the years since its inception, which have been primarily attributed to the complexity of the mission itself. As the first launch for the Artemis mission, Artemis I is largely designed to work out any issues with NASA's deep space exploration equipment before its use by a crew. The mission plans to use the Space Launch System (SLS) rocket, the most complex and powerful rocket ever created, to launch the Orion spacecraft into orbit around the Moon and ultimately thousands of miles farther before returning to Earth 42 days later. The Artemis program's primary goal is to land humans on the Moon for the first time in more than 50 years, build a long-term lunar base, and send the Gateway Starship into long-term orbit around the Moon. Artemis also plans to send the first woman and person of color to the Moon. All those goals depend on a successful preliminary mission. As the world watched, however, the launch director scrubbed today's liftoff at 8:34 a.m. after technical issues with the SLS rocket's third engine. A NASA announcement clarifies that the rocket and spacecraft are safe and stable. NASA Administrator Bill Nelson added that Vice President Kamala Harris, who was in attendance, had been briefed on the trouble and emphasized during NASA's launch coverage, "We don't launch until it's right." While Artemis has experienced several previous delays, today's trouble began during the countdown, at T40 minutes, when the launch was put on an unplanned hold. As launch controllers ran through their pre-launch tests, the RS-25 engines failed to reach the proper temperature range for liftoff. Quickly after beginning evaluations, it became apparent that technicians would need longer than the 2-hour launch window to resolve the problem safely. Rescheduling the launch windows are precisely calibrated for ideal conditions and cannot be adjusted at the 11th hour. NASA chooses its launch times using elaborate criteria, which account for the Moon's position in its lunar cycle, the amount of sun needed to charge Orion's solar array wings, the trajectory necessary to return Orion to Earth, and daylight conditions for splashdown to facilitate the retrieval of the Orion spacecraft. The Artemis mission's next launch window is on Friday, September 2nd, but officials have not yet confirmed that they will be prepared to launch by that date. If the equipment is not ready by Friday, the mission will be postponed further. NASA is expected to hold a press conference today with a full update on the mission's future. Sources: NASA I, NASA 2, NASA 3.
My heart returns to you, dinner, you were